Okay, so welcome back to Archetypes of the Tarot, a series where I'm going to be doing a blind, dry reading, first blush look at a set of tarot cards and giving you my first impressions of what the symbolism might mean, just off of my own personal impressions, but also from my own study and the things that I know in life. And once I've given you my first impressions, then I will go in and we will read what it says in the book, and we'll see how close I got to any of it. I could be completely wrong. I could be right on the dot. We have no idea. We're just doing a blind first reading just to see, like, what is it like, just trying to get an impression of these cards, and what they might mean. And from an archetypal perspective, you'll remember that we talked about the Fool in our previous episode. That's the first card in the set, the first card in the deck, and we talked about how that's the hero of our story. You could call that the prime mover, the instigator, the first mover, the thing that has to exist in order for you to have something to for the story to act, right? It's like you have to have the prime instance in order for everything to happen from then on, or for anything to happen to it, right? And so we will continue with our series. You'll see here that I have uh, put the cards in order. They have numbers on them, so that was very helpful for getting them in order. Technically, I should be talking about the Magician. The Magician is a very important card conceptually and as an aspect of what we're going to be talking about as far as archetypes. But I wanted to skip ahead and I pulled out a couple cards here, and it's because I think that these are kind of like more important to talk about from a conceptual idea perspective before we get to the Magician. And so, the two cards I have for you here are the Sun and the Moon. And I'm going to go through both of them. Technically, I think that the Moon comes before the Sun. It's a few cards before, but we're going to save it. And I'm going to talk about the Sun first. But I will just do a quick comparison of the two cards first so you can see what the similarities and differences are between the two cards. Because they both kind of have like a sun symbolism, but it's a bit different for both of them, right? The rays of the sun and the drops from the moon, right? And so they're in the way that the two cards are visually like each other, the two cards are also conceptually like each other, but they're kind of like two mirror aspects in a way. And I'll try to explain that a bit more as we go, right? And so I'm just going to put the moon card down for now, and we'll talk about the sun for a little while. We'll just look at the symbolism first. And so the symbolism of the sun itself, the sun, the golden sun. The sun represents God in all things. Anywhere that you've seen the sun represented in art, represented as a golden, shining yellow circle with radiant uh, lines coming out from it, like that, it's a representation of the idea of God, right? And so here we have a picture of, I'm guessing this is a child riding a horse with a standard. It's like a flag that he's carrying that's red flowing down from the sun, right? And there's some sunflowers in the background. And I can't even tell if that's supposed to be like a fence that's in front of the sunflowers or just like the boxes that they're growing in or whatever it is. But it's a pretty simple image. It looks like he might have some sort of feather or flowers in the hair. He or she, I should say. I have no idea, you know? But uh, from a symbolic perspective, right? If you think about the card sort of as a circle, that's one way to think about it, where the love from God is flowing down, but is also, it's like the support of the love of God, the rays of the sun, right, is what allows the flowers and everything to grow and for the kid to be happy and to be supported on the horse, right? The horse represents sort of like our motivations, the things that carry us in life, the things that move us, right? And on this side, it's like the connection of nature to the sun, right? That it's a natural uh, occurrence, right? The love flows around in both directions, right? That's what I can get from the card just off of a first blush look, right? But I can also tell you a few other things about the card in relationship to what it might mean because we have a moon card, right? And so, what the sun in relationship to the moon is in our archetypes, as we've been talking about in the archetypes, and why I bought these two cards out to begin with, right? Is if we're telling a story, we're asking a question, or we're trying to figure out something, right? These are our two variables, right? But it's like two variables with aspects to them. And the aspects are the sun represents all of the things that we kind of know to be self evident or true. It's kind of like all of the things under the sun, all the things you can see under the sun, all the things that God supports, all the things that, you know what I mean, are self evident and truthful and correct and like easy to be like, yeah, that's probably the correct thing to do or probably the right thing to do. Whereas the moon represents sort of uncertainty, all the things you're not quite sure about, right? It's like if you were investigating a murder, it's like, oh, well, here's all the evidence that I'm pretty certain about. Here's all the stuff I'm kind of not so sure about, right? That's what another way to think about these is this is your conscious mind, all of the things that you're consciously aware of. And this is the subconscious mind, all the things that you're not technically consciously aware of, but maybe somewhere there under the surface. And so that's kind of the differentiation between these cards, but also why they're important at the beginning of our story or to understand in relationship to a story and archetypes, right? It's kind of like those are the two variables, the values that you're weighing in any kind of decision or trying to keep track of, trying to be honest about like, okay, these are the things that, yeah, okay, I'm pretty certain about, but you also have to be pretty, honest about, maybe these are the things I'm not so certain about, right? So in that way, that's like the relationship of these two cards and why they're important to what we were talking about. But I'll go ahead here now and I'll give you the moon symbolism. This is much more complicated, right? The moon is obviously not too happy, right? And it's shining something down. It's almost like dropping something down onto them, right? And I don't know what the two pillars mean in this scenario. I know what the pillars mean on another card, but in this case, no idea, right? Same with the road, the two dogs. Why is there a lobster crayfish here? I have some ideas about what the symbolism of the water is, right? And what the symbolism, like, water is like a source energy. It's like, you could think about it as being connected to something like electricity, right? It's like the thing that energizes us in a way, right? That the thing that we're like connected to on a subconscious level very deeply. I guess I could put it that way, right? So it's like it may not be something that's trying to drown us, and it's not something that necessarily supports us either. Whereas, like the horse is a definite, we're being supported in this thing. Whereas, like being partially in the water, not so great. And then you have like the uncertainty of these two aspects of, I don't really know. I don't really know. So that's my impressions of those two cards and what those two cards are supposed to sort of mean. Why those two cards are in the deck, right? It's like when we're thinking about our story, when we're thinking about like what's going to happen, right? Or what's going on. It's sort of like two buckets that we can put all of the character motivations or problems or things that they're going to face into, and we can kind of understand them better or keep track of them. Or you can be like, it helps you to sort out your ideas, right? It helps you to sort out your mind to be like, okay, what things is my character certain about? What am I certain about? Let's make a list of the things I'm, not too certain, not sure of. Maybe these are the things I have to change in my character, or that my character has to figure out how to change in order to proceed. And so that's why I wanted to pull those two cards out at the beginning so we could get those ideas on the floor before we start talking about a bunch of the other aspects and characters that are going to be sort of also involved in the rest of our story. So that's just my first impressions of the archetypes, but let's go ahead here. I've got it saved, and we've got the sun. The naked child, mounted on a white horse and displaying a red standard, has been mentioned already as the better symbolism connected with this card. It is the destiny of the supernatural East and the great and holy light which goes before the endless procession of humanity, coming out from the walled garden of the sensitive life and passing on the journey home. The card signifies, therefore, the transit from the manifest light of this world, represented by the glorious sun of earth, to the light of the world to come, which goes before aspiration and is typified by the heart of this card. Okay, that's all I'm going to read because that's the explanation of the card. As we discovered with the fool, the continued explanation goes back to the introduction of this book, and it's talking about other stuff. So we're not going to go into the rest of that. But I'm just going to go back here to what it said, right? Where it says, the card signifies, therefore, the transit from the manifest light of this world, represented by the glorious sun of earth, to the light of the world to come, which goes before aspiration and is typified by the heart of a child, right? If we were to think about the light of the world to come, right? And I was talking about how this represents the things that you are certain about, right? The things that we can be fairly certain are true. It's like the certainty of the future, right? That's the sort of aspect that we're trying to talk about here, right? It goes before aspiration and is typified by the heart of a child. So it's kind of like that childlike trust in the universe, the sun, the support, right? The thing that like we can be sure of or certain of, right? I'll go back here. I'll go back because the moon is two steps before. So there we go. The distinction between this card and some of the conventional types is that the moon is increasing on what is called the side of mercy, to the right of the observer. It has 16 chief and 16 secondary rays. The card represents life of the imagination apart from life of the spirit. The path between the towers is the issue into the unknown. Okay. The dog and the wolf are the fears of the natural mind in the presence of the place of exit, where there is only reflected light to guide it. Okay? That's a really, really fancy way of saying that it represents the subconscious, right? The card represents life of the imagination apart from life of the spirit. That's your subconscious, right? The path between the towers. So the two towers that I was talking about, I didn't know what the meaning was. The path between them, right, is that's the path into the unknown, right? And the dog and the wolf are the fears of the natural mind in the presence of that they have to go through. They have to make a decision and they're uncertain. Remember I said the card represents sort of your uncertainty, right? and where the only thing that they can the only things that they have to figure it out are basically each other, is what it's telling you, right? It's like the things, let me put this back into another reference, right? If we're thinking about this as a murder mystery, right? If these are the things you're certain about and these are the things that you're not certain about, right? It's like what that means technically is that when you try to reference the things that you're uncertain about against the things that you're certain about, even then you still can't be certain. That's why you're uncertain about them, right? It's like even the light of the sun is not enough to illuminate what's going on here, right? And so that's what that line at the end there meant about the if it only has the light from itself to guide it, right? If you only can see what's going on in here to make a decision about, right? You know, if you've all been there while you're watching your murder mystery, it's like, okay, who done it? I have all of my suspects, I have all of my evidence, but I'm still, not quite certain. And I know that the way that the show ends, there's usually going to be like three twists, and then it's going to be the last guy that we suspected. He was the janitor that we've seen two times in the show already. It was minor part, hasn't spoken much. That kind of a thing, right? You know that there's the uncertainty, and you know that the only thing that you can check that uncertainty against is itself. So that's why you're stuck there while you're watching the murder mystery, holding this card, going, well, which is it? Who done it? Where does the uncertainty go? So that I can be certain about it, you know? And so hopefully, that gives you guys just a little bit better of an idea of what those two cards mean and what they mean in context of what we've been talking about as far as archetypes, and why that might be important to if you're trying to keep track of sort of things that are going on, right? So if you guys like that episode and you want to see more as we go through the rest of the set, please like, comment, share, subscribe, all the fun stuff, and join me next time where we will do more fun stuff on the YouTubes. We'll see you then.